Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 372.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because we have with us someone that I think many of you want to hear from. Well, let me tell you why. Because I believe that many of you're doing something right now. Maybe you call that a job. Maybe it's a smaller business. Maybe it's something, but you're trying to figure out how on earth can I get out of the rat race? You're like, man, I would love to exit my reality and transform it into something completely different that right now I might not even know much about, but it just sounds better than where I am. And I think real estate's the way to do that. Well, I have with me today someone who has done exactly that, another fellow real estate investor who happens to like apartment buildings. So we're going to obviously talk a lot about that and how that transition can absolutely help with you doing the exact same thing. So who is it? Well, it is Mark Walker. Now, he is the founder of Luxmana Investments, and he's been doing real estate for quite some time. But what's really interesting is understand, just because you use real estate as your vehicle, that doesn't mean it consumes your life. The things that I really like about real estate is that it allows you to do other things. For example, I know that Mark enjoys theater, camping, cycling, and spending time with his wife and daughter. That means he's a full person. It's not just about the business, but I'm willing to bet that those were the motivations that got him started. So hopefully you are ready to take some notes, ready to listen and learn from Mark Walker. Mark, you there?
I sure am. Happy to be here, Jay. Thanks so much.
You are quite welcome. Glad that you could make the time and make these things happen. There's a number of people who probably have a number of questions, and I'm going to do my best to ask them today so that they don't have to email us individually trying to get it all done. But this being your first time here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. You ready?
You bet.
Awesome. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So if you think about, the Hulk or Wonder Woman or Black Widow or Black Panther, all of those superheroes, if you will, I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, I think entrepreneurs, we occasionally, at least in our own minds, think we're wearing capes and tights and saving people using our products and services in various forms. But also like entrepreneurs and superheroes, we have a beginning. Meaning, if you think about Spider-Man, for example, there was a time he was just a college kid, going to school, taking some photos. That's all he was doing. Then something happened to him. And then he has a decision to make. Well, am I going to use this newfound gift for good or evil and go out there and serve people? Meaning his origin story. And what we want to know. So my question to you is, before Luxmana, before even you got into the corporate America game, before all of those things, the question is, who is Mark Walker?
Boy, that is a fantastic question. I love that. Well, you know what? I grew up in a little town in Minnesota called New Prague.
New Prague?
Yeah, New Prague. We actually, it's spelled Prague because there was a lot of people that originally settled there that were from Prague, Czechoslovakia.
Got it.
But for some reason, over the years, we came to pronounce it New Prague. And so I think that when I lived there, the town might have had a population of about 2,200 people. So I'm a small town boy. And
did you say 2,200?
Yeah, 2,200 is pretty small, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Okay,
You
keep
know,
going.
it's so funny, Jay, because I remember a few years ago taking my wife to New Prague and showing her around. And we went to this old restaurant that had been there since who knows the beginning, and she's looking around. She's like, "You're really from here?" It was really funny. But anyway, yeah. So I grew up in a small town, and went to school in Minnesota. I went to school at Oral. I went to college at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and went back to Minnesota for another year after that before I moved to Colorado to start my corporate gig. And that really kicked off my career. I worked for a high tech company, but when I was younger, I realized I was very different from other children. No, I'm
Oh,
just,
okay.
yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But I think my entire life I've always had this desire, to do my own thing, be free,
Mm.
and not be told what to do, I guess, for the lack of better things. And I've always been a builder. I've always liked building things. When I was a kid, I played with Legos and just liked creating things. And it's one of the things too that the way that my journey has gone. One of the things I love about real estate is that I can build things, I can improve things, and I absolutely love that about real estate. And I think that ties to who I am at the core.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so a couple of questions. First of all, 2,200 people is like really small. I mean, I just sit in my head. I can't even imagine a place that small, to be honest. Because it's when you say 2,200 people, honestly, one of the things I was thinking about is like there are apartment communities that house that many. It's an apartment community that has 20. I mean, I know some like out here in Orange County, there's 1,500 apartment units in a community, which is therefore larger than the town. And I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. So then you've got to bridge this gap, though. At what point do you plant or nurture this seed? How do you even, you go to college, but you have this thing in inside of you that's seeking expression, but yet you still decide to go to college, get good grades, etc., and end up in corporate America. What was that process? Why was college then a part of your process if you had this thing inside?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that part of me, probably didn't emerge obviously until a little bit later. And it's funny, I have a friend that really good friend from college. Both of us, considered ourselves entrepreneurs in college. When we both graduated, we went different paths. He immediately went the path of becoming an entrepreneur. He had his successes and his failures. I went on to work for corporate America, and I think, frankly, that was probably driven by a desire to make money.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of better things, and frankly, when I look back, that probably really stemmed from fear. Right. Wanting
Okay.
to feeling like, I needed to make, so much money to succeed and, make it and stuff like that. And it didn't take long, before, that those entrepreneurial desires and things started to reemerge and knock at the door of my soul, And
Yeah.
so I started investing in real estate on the side. And certainly, reading Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, really nurtured that as well. That really inspired me. And that's what really turned me on to real estate.
Okay, got it. Now, interestingly, I know inside the Cashflow Diary community, there are many different occupations that we've had success with, but one of the ones that we've had a lot of success with are people who are in technology of some kind or engineers or things of this nature. So I'm actually kind of curious if you think that plays a role, your propensity towards things high tech plays a role in any way, shape, or form with your ability to execute and transact in the real estate world.
Well, as far as the real estate itself, I don't necessarily believe that it plays so much of a role that, yes, my background is high tech. I worked on
Right.
the marketing side.
Okay.
So, the marketing aspect of it, which, I mean, marketing exists in every industry, right? That certainly has helped me and aided me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as technology goes, though, that's definitely helped me scale.
Got it.
Really being able to think in terms of systems, and develop systems that can make tasks easier and to scale my portfolio. A great example of that's like bookkeeping. My tech background certainly helped me, solve a problem I had around bookkeeping as I scaled my portfolio.
Got it. We want to talk about that in a second because I know there's a number of people who are having that problem. I myself had that problem until, I just hired somebody to take care of it because there was no way I was going to solve it myself. So there's one part that I always like to talk about. It's that part where I call that superhero moment, meaning that for every entrepreneur, there comes this point where you realize, oh my God, I have something special. This is a special skill that I have been gifted that I can use to go out there and then you have to make a decision. Am I going to use it for good or evil? Keep it to myself or share it with people? My question to you is, how did you discover that superhero ability, if you will, and what was that transition like going from corporate America, because it has its own rhythm, to, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing?
Yeah, I think it was probably around the time when, it was probably as little as 5 years ago, when I really started to re-engage in real estate and really started to build a passive portfolio, and my passive income was growing. There was, a point, I don't know, probably when I broke maybe 10 properties that I realized, I'm onto something here. And, it even tied to my corporate America stuff too, because I'll be honest, I was getting jaded there towards the end, in my corporate job. And the reason for that was, and maybe this ties to that superhero moment, I would look at how quickly I could make decisions about my real estate portfolio with the help of my property manager, my lender, my insurance agent, everyone that, helped me along my journey, right? And then I would see the impact or the fruit that decision would bear and how quickly that fruit would start to grow, And then I'd compare that to my corporate job. Everyone had the power to say no, but no one had the power to say yes. And that really frustrated me. And I just, didn't see that aspect of my life bearing fruit any longer. And so that's probably when I realized, I'm onto something here. I want to nurture this. I want to grow this even more. And it really started to take off.
Okay, so that brings me back to something you said earlier, which I want to circle around to, because this word or phrase gets tossed around so much. And I don't think we ever take enough time to understand what it means, or more specifically, what it means to us personally. So I will ask you, because you said earlier that you had a desire to do your own thing, a desire to be free. What does being free mean to Mark Walker?
It means that I can literally walk away from my work on a day's notice and stay away from it for, say, a week, 2 weeks, or more at a time, and come back and pick up where I left off with no interruption to my income. And it's the freedom to, if my daughter, if I want to take her to dance class, or if I want to go to her dance recital, or, if I find out at last minute that there's a parent-teacher conference maybe we didn't have on the schedule, I can drop whatever I'm doing and I can go take care of that stuff. Because those are the things that are important to me in my life, is my wife and my daughter. Those relationships, are number one. And, that to me is freedom, to be able to just drop it all on a moment's notice, stay away for a long duration, and come back and pick up where I left off.
You know what I find interesting, and I think I want to highlight for everybody else who's listening. You did not say money, watches, cars, houses, or anything material in what you just shared. Yet, oftentimes, when we're beginning or in the middle of our business, we say things like, I just want to make more money, or I want a bigger house, a bigger car. I want, travel and vacations. You didn't say any of that. A lot of the things that you mentioned were all true quality of life, issues that surround us all. Are you trying to say that was your motivation from the beginning, is like, hey, I want this, and therefore I'm going to use leverage real estate as a way to make that happen?
Yeah, I think I can honestly say yes, that was my motivation from the beginning, but I'm not going to lie. I went through that phase, especially being a high paid corporate employee, where I, bought some nice things, and I went through that phase, and looking back on it, those things did not make me happy, and I'm not knocking having nice things, by the way,
Right.
by any means,
Right.
but at the end of the day, I can look at, a car and say, it's just plastic and steel. That car's not going to hug me back. It's not going to tell me it loves me.
And if it does, then Elon Musk has succeeded in his ability to take over the whole auto industry. Yes, got it.
Exactly.
Yep. I can remember going through that phase. And I like how you said it was a phase, because I know there's some people that may be the thing that's motivating them right now. But I think it's important to recognize that there's a personal growth side to this business that changes and changes the person, which means other things become way more important than, what car am I driving and what neighborhood am I living in.
Right. And I think, I heard a phrase once, and it applies to people, but I think it can apply to things too. Someone said to me once, there's 4 kinds of people in the world: those that add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Right. And the same thing can be said about, your stuff. Right. There are things that are going to contribute towards your goal. For me, towards my goal of freedom, and there's things that's not. The fancy car that and all those things that we're talking about. Those subtracted, from what I had, or from my goal. Whereas I was able to go off and invest in real estate, which actually added and multiplied towards my goal, contributed to that goal significantly.
Yeah. And it takes, I think one of the things that helped you do that, and I could be wrong, but it's just, there's this, you got to just take the time to plan it and think it through, as opposed to letting whatever path you're on just take you where you want to go. So what would you say would be that moment that, I guess, where you woke up, where you realized, you know what? And more importantly, that conversation for a number of people is a challenge. They wake up, they go, you know what? I need something different. But then they either have a significant other, or they have to talk to themselves, or, friends, and say, look, I'm going to go do this new thing, way over here. I'm leaving this job that I know to you it looks great, but to me it feels like a jail. So yes. I got to do something different. What was that conversation like with those that you cared about?
You know what? That conversation where it was like official. It was like, yeah. I'm going to leave the rat race here. I've achieved my goal here, my passive income goal. Mm-hmm. I kept telling myself, so to kind of set the stage here as to what was going on around me at the time, I had the passive income, mm-hmm. but I was in that trap mentally, mm-hmm. where I had this awesome paycheck, mm-hmm. and my brain had been trained for 14 years working as a corporate employee, that every 2 weeks, more money magically appeared in my bank account, and it was like an addiction. Yeah. And so I always told myself, even though I had achieved my goal, I'm just going to go for another 2 years, and then I'll be done. But there was that point, and it was in probably October of 2014. Mm-hmm. I just came home on a Friday night, and I was just beat mentally. I was getting jaded at my job and stuff like that. And my wife and I sat down that weekend, and, she even, had a notepad in her hand. We were kind of like mind mapping. She was mind mapping what we were discussing and stuff like that. And it was in that moment, I was making the comparison of, the corporate world to my own gig, what I was doing with real estate and stuff like that. And, after having the conversation, she set down the notepad, and I got to give so much credit to my wife. She was so incredibly supportive in saying, it's time,
Nice.
and she was very supportive around that. And but prior to that too, in leading up to that, knowing that this was always my goal, what I did very early on is I asked myself what kind of lifestyle I wanted to live. And I was able to quantify that lifestyle. I knew how much that lifestyle cost because I started living it. Right? And at this point, I'd gone through my phase, of driving the really nice cars and stuff like that. And but I was able to quantify that. And then I said, okay, my goal is going to be to achieve 2x that in passive income. And so that was something very easy. That's how I set my goal. I did not seek to replace my W-2 income because the reality is if I had sought to do that, then, that would have been a lot harder. And who knows, I might still be in the rat race because I was a very high paid W-2 employee.
Understood. And
so that's something that, for anybody that's interested in doing this or aspires to do this, this is something you can do right now, today. You can ask yourself, what kind of lifestyle do I want to live, and start living it, quantify it, and then set your goal based on that. And, I just want to say too, I'm not cheap. I'm not thrifty.
Right.
My wife and I, we live well. I went on we went as a family last September to Disney World for 7 days, stayed in 5-star accommodations. In October, my wife went to Paris for 10 days. I just went to Whistler. I just got back from Whistler, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I went out there to ski for 5 days. So we live well, but just know what kind of lifestyle you want to live and start living it.
Well, what I like about what you just said, because there are a number of people that, well, the goal is, I'm going to replace what I'm making now. And if I can't do that, then, no dice. There's no game here. But you did what I think is even smarter in that you're like, what I'm making now is great, but I may not need all of that in order to have the quality of life that I want. And the second decision, which I wish someone would have counseled me on, was to go for 2x, not just 1x of that.
Sure.
Number, because stuff happens after
sure.
as you well know. And what I think is interesting is that you did all of those things and you were able to put yourself in a position that says, less than what I'm currently is still okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be better, or more money doesn't mean higher quality of life. But as just kind of curiosity and fun, what was the fancy car that you were enjoying driving at one time?
In 2008, I had a Nissan 350Z Nismo. So this was the decked out,
sounds like trouble,
racetrack ready, bright red sports car.
Got it.
When I was a teenager, I used to sit on the floor of the living room and I used to just page through the Toyota Supra brochure, of like the 1993, 94 era Toyota Supra.
Yep.
And I remember that Nissan 350Z Nismo reminded me so much of that Supra, And so I bought that. And then after owning that for a while, I had an Infiniti G37 XS, which was a pretty zippy car too. A lot of fun.
Love it. Okay, got it. Yeah, I went the German route, not down the Audi. That was like my thing. S8
nice.
series. So the luxury performance like sedans was I'm taller. I can't fit in either one of those cars you mentioned. So those were never even on the plate because it's like, I can't fit in that. It's not even, in fact, I remember the day I was going to go test drive a Lamborghini and I didn't because I couldn't get behind the wheel. And I'm just like, that was when my love affair of Lamborghini ended, but that's a whole nother.
Sounds more like a breakup there, man.
It was really sad. It was really, really, because my dreams were shattered. I had Lamborghini everything, everywhere. But anyway, it's all good. So talk to us about this. You go from corporate America, but you could have done anything in the real estate world. Why apartment buildings?
Well, there's a lot of things that I love about apartments. But I think the biggest thing is the economies of scale. Uh, I had a mentor that told me some time ago, Mark, the bigger the deal, the easier it is. And I always got what he was trying to say, but it never really resonated to me until I bought a 64 unit apartment complex. I realized that I spent just as much time renovating a 64 unit apartment complex and repositioning that asset that I did a 12 unit apartment complex. The only difference was I had bigger budgets to work with, and the pot of gold was much bigger at the end of that rainbow. And so, and the truth is too that, a 150 unit apartment complex, you're going to, put forth the same amount of time as the 64 unit. So, I've always just strived to do bigger and bigger deals, for that reason. And so I love the economies of scale. The other thing that I love about larger multifamily is it's now you're firmly in the commercial space. And commercial properties are valued differently than residential. A residential property is essentially worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And the way I'll back that statement up is just look at how those properties are appraised. When you get your personal residence appraised, they're going to come in and they're going to pull all of the sales comparables. And they're going to look at what the house down the street sold for 3 months ago. And they're going to look down the other side of the street and see that one's on the market. And they're going to, compare your house to those, in terms of features and amenities. And depending on what those other properties sold for, they're going to assign a value to your house. Well, when it comes to the commercial space, the properties are appraised based on the income method. So if I can increase the net operating income of my apartment complex, then I'm going to get forced appreciation of the property. And all of a sudden now you can have a more predictable outcome. So when I acquire a multifamily property, my objectives are pretty clear. I need to increase income and decrease expenses. If I do that, I'm going to maximize my net operating income. I'm going to increase the value of my property. So I absolutely love that about multifamily. So, I could go on, but those are just a couple of examples, toppled with the fact that, I just want to continue to do larger and larger deals. That's been my journey, and that's what I strive to continue doing.
That's right. Bigger, better, and better. At the end of the day, you're never going to out-earn your personal growth, and you will realize that about yourself as well. So what does that mean? That means keep growing, keep learning, keep reading, keep listening, and sharing the podcast by all means, because as you continue on your journey building your cash flow, you will soon realize that you'll reach a limit, and maybe that limit's six figures. Maybe that's $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year. And then you were like, man, how do I break through to the seven figures? And the secret is personal growth. Hopefully you're getting that message. And more importantly, you're understanding that there's so many ways to skin this real estate cat. Speaking of which, let's get back to Mark. Totally understood. It's like a process of continuous and never-ending improvement. So let's talk about the dark side for a moment. And I often say things like to people, I'm like, real estate's easy. It's people. And that can be the challenge. What are some of those instances that had you questioning, do I really want to do this?
I remember when I acquired that 64 unit property, I had a CapEx budget all planned out for the first year. And, this property's in Texas that I'm talking about. And, this is the first acquisition I had ever done in Texas. And, I realized that there were some differences between Colorado and Texas. One of the biggest differences is in Colorado, when you buy a property, when you get a CO or a certificate of occupancy, when the property is built. As long as that property doesn't burn down, you're not going to have to get another CO. But in Texas, you have to get a certificate of occupancy every single time the property trades hands. What that means is that the city, the fire department, everyone's going to come walking through your property with the objective to find things that are wrong.
Oh, joy.
And yes. And then they're going to hand you a piece of paper at the end, and they're going to say, you have 30 days to fix this. And, There's a number of things that I had anticipated, that no problem. I had planned to address those things anyway. Maybe the only thing there is I was hoping to do it gradually as opposed to have 30 days to do it, but no big deal. But there was one particular thing, the pool. Uh, the pool was inspected, when I was doing the due diligence for the property. It was good condition, but the city disagreed. They said, we want you to replaster the pool. Isn't that funny? I mean, it's like, who would have thought that they would care about, plastering the pool, much less have a say in that, but they did. And so that's supposed to be like a $6,000-$7,000 event. But of course, once you start peeling back the onion,
right,
one thing happens after another. That turned into a $15,000 ticket.
And let's be clear, you weren't planning on spending that at all, let alone in this 30-day window.
Exactly. And arguably, I don't think it needed it, but no problem. Everything worked out okay. I came in under budget on a number of other things where I was able to trim the CapEx budget and stuff like that. Obviously, the lesson learned was that, I should always set aside my CapEx budget a little bit more, for maybe deferred maintenance that we didn't anticipate, things like that. But, all is well that ends well. But boy, that was a time where I was just kind of gritting my teeth, thinking, I don't know about this, maybe I should just, buy single family homes here in Colorado. But, I got over it. No big deal.
Was there ever, and again, I get the challenges with organizations.
Yes.
Been there, done that.
Right.
What about any challenges with the residents? Is that something that you've encountered that has ever made you question, like really? That was what you did? That was like the idea? That was the solution?
Obviously, I've had my fair share of experiences with the residents and stuff like that, but never to a point where it made me second guess or anything like that. But using that same example, when the property did trade hands, there were a number of residents that were upset about certain things, from the prior ownership and stuff like that. That it turned out they were happy, when they saw, how much, I was investing to improve the property. But initially, right then, I mean, there was literally a petition that they were passing around. I don't know what they had hoped to really accomplish with it, but they were passing around a petition, to address certain things, and, again, I was improving the property, and, once they saw, the contractors there and, the things that were being done and improved and stuff like that, everyone was happy pretty quick.
Okay. But you're bringing up these questions bring up a lot of the concerns that I know a lot of people who are listening have. For example, we can what if ourselves right into and out of a transaction and these are the things that I know concern a number of people, meaning what if something happens, that I don't know the answer to, have never had experience with or prepared for, and that's usually where it stops, because until they figure out the answer to all of the what ifs, they don't want to move forward. Yet, what I hear in your stories is you didn't let what you didn't know get in the way. So
That's
where does
right.
that come from?
I think, I can definitely relate to the people that want to check all the boxes, right? I mean, I think we're all to a certain extent, risk adverse, and it's wise for us to anticipate, possible problems and things like that, because we can do something about it, right? But, for me, I'm not so concerned about what could go wrong, because I believe in my ability to step up and deal with it, right? So, there's always going to be unknowns and stuff like that. But if you believe in yourself and you believe in the team that you have in place, then, I think that's less of an issue. And that's the thing too, is that I am totally a systems guy. I make sure that I have, top-notch property management in place, and, people locally that can, help me through, some of the hoops and stuff like that come along with this. But yeah, you're never going to be able to anticipate everything that could go wrong, and things will go wrong for sure. Right. But you have to believe in yourself, and what can you do today, to prepare yourself for what could happen tomorrow. So
I agree with you 100%. But there's still someone going, well, how do I become that person that can believe in myself, Mark? I mean, I've not put myself in that situation before, and I'd like to know that I can do what you did. I can respond to the unknown, to a $15,000 bill, which, by the way, everybody, that's not a lot of money to suddenly have to figure out.
Right.
So let's just be really clear. The bill could have been a lot larger, and we've handled much bigger issues than 15 grand. But the point is, someone right now listening to you and I, 15 grand, that threw them like, oh my God, whatever would I do? But so how do they become that person that can begin to trust their ability to stick it through, and respond appropriately?
Take action. I say this all the time, right? And I'll incorporate it into a broader perspective. Learning leads to action. Action leads to success. So you never want to stop learning. The very fact that, people who are out there listening to this podcast is a good sign, right? You're learning, right? From there, start to take action. If all you do is start to analyze properties, maybe you go out and you look online, you look on the MLS, you find properties and you start analyzing them. Most of those properties might not even pencil, as I say, right? They may not make sense. But what's important is that you're taking action. You are going to learn, and you're going to understand what a good deal looks like. And when that good deal comes along, you'll be prepared. You'll know what it looks like, and you'll be ready to take the next step. So, do something. Start taking action today.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean signing a contract. It doesn't mean closing on a property, right now, but start taking action towards and steps towards your goal. And you're going to learn things along the way. You're going to have successes. You're going to have failures. But what's that phrase? Fail often, fail quickly.
I often say fail fast, fail forward, and fail frequently.
That's good. I like that a lot. And just you're gonna snap back up. And before you know it, so many things are just going to be second nature. You're going to start to anticipate things and be able to prepare for it. But, I just start small, and work your way up. But don't just sit idle. That's the worst thing anybody can do. Never stop learning. Learning leads to action. Action leads to success.
So with that being the case, there's a number of people who are listening who they've been doing a lot of learning for a while. When do they know it's time to take action?
There's no knowing. You just got to do it. And like I said, at very least, start analyzing deals. Again, most of the deals that you analyze might not materialize at all. They may not make any sense at all, but you're starting to ask questions. You're starting to look at, well, what could that rent for, and what would it cost to operate? How much would the taxes be? What property management, do I fee do I need to assume, for this? Start talking to property managers. Hey, what do you think about that property? And what would it rent for? And what could I do to repair that property to increase the rent to $100 a month or $200 a month? Start taking action. Start taking baby steps. You don't have to spend money yet to do the things that I just rattled off. But what's important is that you're preparing yourself. And when the right opportunity does come along, you're not even going to have to talk yourself into it, because you're going to know what it looks like, because you've done all that. You can't just sit idle. If you're waiting for someone to tell you, or for some sign that it's time to start, boy, you're never going to get it, man. You got to just start. You got to start doing something.
Yes, totally understood. Totally understood. And I think I have an interesting question for you. So, because the concept of what is a good deal is nebulous at best. And so my question is, what is what you consider a good deal today? Is it the same? Would it be the same definition that you used when you first started?
No, it wouldn't be. And the reason for that is because, when again, let me set the stage, and it's important to note this, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
When I started buying stuff again in, passive income stuff, rental properties again, it was in 2011. The market was very different. Everything was a dime a dozen. I was buying at just a wonderful, wonderful time. So let's not lose sight of that. Everything that I bought, back in that time frame, I was getting a 20% cash on cash return or greater on, which is huge, And, those same properties, even after the first year, the rents have gone up significantly just organically as the market has recovered.
Mm-hmm,
So, with that said, I was turning my nose up at stuff back then that if it didn't pencil with a 20% cash on cash return or greater, I'd turn my nose up at them, and I would walk away from it. And it's so funny too, because I think about some of those. What I think about are the deals I walked away from, back then. Because literally, there were some, it was like 19.5% cash on cash return. I'd walk away from it.
You're like,
nope,
not good enough.
Exactly. If I found that deal today,
right.
Man, I'd be all over
Give me
it.
two. Give me two. Yeah. Totally.
Exactly. Even now, if something was half that, 10% cash on cash return, I'd do that deal. But, that was a different time. But at the same time, too, I've built a foundation, a reliable foundation of, predictable passive income, steady passive income that I have coming in. So, my what I look for is definitely different now, and plus I'm doing apartments too. That was back when I was buying single family stuff. So
sure.
It's different because of that as well. But
my only goal in asking that question is it's many people ask, and I'm sure you get the question too. Hey, Mark, what's a good deal? And it's one of the most unfair questions to ask someone because it's always, it depends. And there's so many factors that go into it, whether it's the market or whether your own choices, because, there are times, for example, and I'm just curious, would you go back to doing single family houses?
Oh, I would, but I'm not proactively looking for single family houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But hey, if I found a great deal, a great deal to me, absolutely, I would do it.
Well, and interestingly, one of the things, like you would, for example, you would do a deal in a place where it snows, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I won't, because I just don't like snow. I don't like the boilers and the heaters and everything that goes along with it because of my experience with people in that environment. But to you, that's fine. And that's something that just changes over time. And that's really my goal in saying, what's a good deal? A good deal depends on so many factors, the numbers are important, but it's not just the numbers. So does that make sense?
It sure does. And what it reminds me of is that, I'm constantly reminded of the fact there are so many different ways to make money in real estate. And I love that, Another example of that is too, there's a lot of people out there that self-manage, do property management. I will never ever do property management. I always use third-party property management. I will never do property management. But you know what? I'm not knocking it because there's some people that are so incredibly successful self-managing their properties. I have nothing bad to say about it, but it's just not for me.
Yeah, totally understood. And that's exactly what I'm saying is I won't manage either, by the way. So it's like, no, there's so much is like, no, you're not saving any time or saving any money. Nope, it's not worth it. So yeah, that I totally get that one too. So for those that have listened this far, and probably want to find out more about what you guys got going on over at Luxmana, et cetera. What's going to be the best way for them to find out more information and know more about what you guys are doing?
Yeah, you know what? Visit me at luxmana.com. Luxmana is spelled Luxmana.com. And as a matter of fact, too, as a way of saying thank you for listening this far, I'd be happy to give you a guide that I've written. It's called 10 Not So Obvious Ways to Boost Your Multifamily Property NOI. It's just some tricks that I've learned along the way. And whether or not you're an apartment investor or aspire to be an apartment investor, or maybe you don't even do apartments at all, there might be something in there that you find valuable that'll help you increase your returns on your real estate investments. So check it out. That'll be at /cashflow diaries. So luxmana.com/cashflow diaries.
Excellent. So as we end here, I've got a question for you. Because it's a question I like to ask everybody, and I'm interested to hear your answer. So let's pretend for a moment, Mark, that the person listening is contemplating, deciding, hey, I want to put on that superhero outfit for the first time. I want to become that superhero. Maybe they're even standing in front of the superhero outfit store, right? They're ready to go. However, in the back of their mind is that voice, and I know you've done business with that voice. You have fought and slaved and wrestled that voice time and time and time again. It's that voice that comes up that reminds us of what we can't do, who we're not, and who are we to think we should try anything that we consider great. And for some people, they're even related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend for a moment that the person listening is going to commit to doing exactly what you say. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours because they're going to finally make this thing happen. My question to you is simply this. What would you have them do?
Well, the first step that I do, and this is what I did, is I would ask yourself what kind of lifestyle you want to live, and then put a number to that. You're going to know what your monthly bills are, what kind of lifestyle you want to live, put a number to that. And then decide what percentage of that number you want in passive income, if that's what you aspire to do. For me, it was 200%. I wanted 200% passive income off of my expenses. So set that target. That becomes your goal. And then after that, start taking some kind of action. Again, it doesn't need to be action that costs you money. It's going to cost you your time, and that's the most precious thing you have, but you're going to have to commit your time to make this happen. The other thing that I want everyone to realize is this is not a decision you are going to make once. This is a decision that you are going to wake up every single morning, and you are going to make that decision every single day to escape the rat race. And you need to ask yourself, what do I need to do today in pursuit of my goal?
Nice. Well said. 100%. I definitely appreciate you taking the time to not only offer something that could be of value to those who are trying to better their apartments, but most importantly, sharing the knowledge, your insight, as well as your wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you again so much. And you know what, J2? I realized that I gave out a bad URL earlier.
Oh.
That slug is not. It's actually luxmana.com/cashflow diary. I think I said cashflow diaries before. It's singular, cashflow diary. So sorry about that, but
it's okay.
Head that way, get that paper.
Indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means go to luxmana.com/cashflow diary and pick up those tips that he is giving you, the not so obvious ones on how you might be able to increase that NOI. But more importantly than that, I want you to pay attention to what he said at the end. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? What percent of that number do you want to be passive income? And more than 100 is completely fine and often recommended. But most importantly, remember, the decision you made today, you made a decision today to listen this far. guess what you're going to have to do tomorrow? You're going to make another decision that keeps you on the same path, and the same thing for the day after that. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.